Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, February 24th, 2023. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker for his usual Friday visit. I want to do kind of a rehash of the discussion I had on Wednesday, but get your take on it about the defensive line. We'll get into some other stuff as well. So, Larry Johnson, we all love him. What's your take on this? Do you feel like the rotation is too deep? Do you feel like the philosophies with LJ and Jim Knowles don't really mesh? Just a lot to unpack there. Player development. Do you feel like he's past his prime? A lot to get into there. What's your take, JBook?
Yeah, there's a lot of comments coming out. I think is fascinating that we've heard comments over at the Bucknuts site and other Ohio State beat writers have heard, a little bit of whispers that maybe Larry Johnson isn't quite meshing with Jim Knowles as far as the scheme. And I know I've talked to other people within the program, players and stuff, and they said Larry's just a type of guy that he's very set in his ways. He's set in how he wants to do things. He's 70 years old. He's been in the game for X how many years. And when it comes to him, he just, goes about his business. And regardless of who the defensive coordinator is, they just kind of have to adapt to Larry, Dave. And I kind of find that troubling on my end because there's multiple defensive coaching staff have came in and out of Ohio State since Larry's been there, and that's kind of been the consistent theme is Larry just does his thing and everybody gives him his leeway as far as the head coaches. But whenever the defensive front and the back end are not always on the same page, you have to take a step back and be honest and question like, okay, what are we doing here? Is the reason the defense isn't playing to an elite level is because all three levels are not on the same page, and maybe the defensive line rotation is probably too deep. I do believe, Dave, that there are times that your star players just needs to see the field. I mean, Mike Hall, Tyleek, JT shouldn't be coming off the field. The rest of those guys, they're just Jags. They're just a guy, to be honest. I want to see my elite difference makers, regardless if they make a mistake here and there, coach them up. If Tyleek Williams is not disciplined enough to stay in his gap, coach him up. You can't take him off the field in critical situations for a guy with lesser talent that's not going to make the explosive plays.
Yeah, Teron Vincent leading the D tackles in snaps by a wide margin was mismanagement, in my opinion. Now, I know
Yeah.
Mike Hall was hurt, and that's legit. He was dealing with the shoulder all season. Even though he said he was 100% going into the Peach Bowl, what's he going to say? Is he going to let Georgia know that, no, it's still –
Yeah.
even if he felt that way, it could have been one play and then he re-injured. But still, Teron Vincent graded out very low, according to Pro Football Focus. Wasn't even invited to the Combine, and he by far led the team led the D tackles in snaps. So
I would say this about the D-line, Dave. They haven't been great and they haven't been bad. They've been pretty
right.
consistent. Like you look at the sacks. The sacks haven't been there. The pressures have been there. They've been good against the run, not good against the run, depending on which scheme they're playing in. So they've been consistent on how they've played. I just think that there's a little bit more that can be squeezed from the limit there, Dave, as far as getting the best out of those guys. Because I feel like JT, Jack Sawyer, those guys should have a much more bigger impact on the game than what we're seeing right now. Yes, you got the your star players and your Bosa's and your Chase Youngs. Those are your generational type of players. But what I want to see is those younger guys really develop into potential NFL caliber top 3 round guys like your Kenyatta Jacksons, your Mario Obars, your Caden Currys. Those next wave of guys, I need to see them take a jump. I need to see JT Tuamalo take a jump from being really good to being an All-American. To being a difference maker to where offenses have to adjust to where he's at all times of the field. We never really saw that takeoff from Zach Harrison. Now, don't get me wrong, Zach had a very solid senior year, but the previous years it left a lot to be desired. So I do think that I wouldn't say Larry needs to retire or anything like that. I think that he deserves to be able to go out on his own terms, but I just think that he probably buys into the hype of his guys a whole lot more than everybody else. Because as you mentioned, Vincent and Cage and all of those guys, like they just should be spot duty rotation type of pieces on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Tyreek Williams should have played a lot more this past season. He just should have.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see. Now, I want to ask you about this. So Zach Harrison, I thought, had a good senior year. So when I'm going to compare Jack Sawyer to Zach Harrison, not that they're that same type of player, but hear me out. Both local kids, both 5 stars. Everybody thought they'd come in and be Chase Young right away. Didn't happen as a freshman, didn't happen as a sophomore for either one of them. Now, Zach Harrison ended up having a good career overall, I think. He's going to be probably, a second-round pick? I mean, that's pretty good. So I don't think I'm trashing Jack Sawyer maybe to compare him to Zach Harrison, but I kind of see that where maybe he was a little overrated coming out of high school. I don't know. I mean, I'm just not through 2 years. I know it's just 2 years, but I expected more out of Jack Sawyer this past year, and maybe he'll break out as the superstar we were all hoping this coming year. Maybe he will, but I see more of a Zach Harrison trajectory for Jack Sawyer than I do a Chase Young or whatever. What do you think about that?
I hope we get more production from Jack than what we got from Zach early on, because Harrison was only averaging about 3 sacks a season for his first 3 years. So hopefully we can get a little bit more production this upcoming year. But I agree with all of the people that are in here saying that Jack Sawyer needs to have his hand in the dirt. He's a guy that needs to be able to get down there, use his strength, use his size, get after the quarterback. What they had him playing at the jack position on the field, I don't think it suits his game. Larry Johnson seems to agree with that he believes that it stunted Jack's growth. If you kind of listen to the tea leaves and the people around the program, because they think that Jack's development really didn't take off this past year like it should have, with him learning that new position. So get his hand in the dirt and let's see what he can do. I want to see him be able to at least pin his ears back and do what he does best, like we all saw on film in high school, which is go and get the quarterback.
All right, let's get to a question here. This is from Park Bear on YouTube. JBook, if Larry Johnson retires at the end of this season, who will be some of the candidates to replace him?
I would say the Ole Miss defensive line coach, name slips me right now, but I know he coached under Larry Johnson, was an intern at Ohio State as far as a grad assistant. Now he's coaching down in the SEC. I think he would be the first guy that Ryan Day would give a call, because he's familiar with the program. He's familiar with Larry Johnson. He studied underneath him, and now he has that experience of recruiting in the SEC territory.
Another quick question. I can answer this one. This is from Paul Buckeye on YouTube. Do the Buckeyes still have TC Caffey, the walk-on running back? Yes, they do. He unfortunately got hurt. That looked like a heck of a steal. I think it still is. He was one of the most prolific running backs in Ohio high school history. No joke. And they got him as a preferred walk-on, and he was looking good. And in garbage time, it still was looking good. And then had a season-ending injury. But, yeah, they still have TC Caffey, to my knowledge, unless something's changed. I want to ask you about this. So Kourt Williams is a guy every year we hear good things about. Now, everybody loves him. He's a hard worker. He was named captain. But I feel like it's like a Cam Babb situation. Like, is he ever going to be healthy enough to play? Like, everybody loves him, respects him. He's a great kid. He's a captain. But is he ever going to be healthy enough to see the field, in your opinion?
I don't see him being a difference maker or being an impact player right now, to be honest. And it's unfortunate, because I thought he had a lot of potential. I just think that the injuries will play his role with him. And with that, I just look at him as being a guy that's a leader in the locker room, someone who's going to be able to help those younger guys. But the talent that they're recruiting right now, what they're looking at the safety position, it's going to be hard for him to really jump in there and find some reps for him. But you never know. With that being said, I'm hoping for the best for the kid, but the injuries have impacted his career thus far.
Yeah, I'd love to see him, ball out. But and it's funny, like, funny is not the right word. When I talk about the safeties, I almost forget about him. Like, I'll go through the safeties. I did a show like talking. I think you and I even did a show like talking about, like, well, Sonny Styles has got to be the bandit, and then what are they going to do with Lathan Ransom? And then they got Jahad Carter, and they got Kai Stokes, and somehow Josh Proctor's coming back, and all these guys were. And then it's like, oh yeah, like Kourt Williams, who was a captain last year, is on the team. I agree with you. Like, I hope I'm wrong. I just get this Cam bad feeling. So I hope I'm wrong. I'm going to get your thoughts on Dylan Raiola. Your backyard. He is still ranked as the #1 overall player in the country in his class. Are we looking at Arch Manning 2.0 here? Like, is he overrated? And now he's canceled his Georgia visit. Probably going to go to Nebraska, I would guess. His uncle is coaching there now. His dad obviously went there. You know Dylan. I mean, you don't know. I don't know if you know him personally. You know a lot about him from where you live and just following football like you do, recruiting. Is he overrated? Is he rated where he should be? What are your thoughts on that?
I will say when it comes to this kid, Dave, there's a lot of red flags that are being waved right now that a lot of people have to take into consideration. You're talking about 3 high schools for this kid that's coming up. He's transferring out of Chandler, which is a powerhouse, going over to a school over in Phoenix. So this would make his 3rd high school, and yeah, and that right there. I mean, think about it, Dave. You have kids. You know, how taxing would that be for a kid mentally and a family to be at 3 different high schools before your senior year even starts? So I just think that there's a lot of red flags when it comes to commitment. As far as his game, don't get me wrong, he can make every throw. He's a big guy. I think he may play about 240, 250 in college. I think the genetics are just going to catch up to him with his dad being an NFL offensive lineman. If you look at him, he's a huge kid. He is an absolute statue. I mean, when I talk about a guy that can't move his feet, you're talking about Big Ben type of statue back there, not being able to run. So is he overrated? That's that's the eye of the beholder. When you go and watch him, you're like, yeah, you can see how live the arm is. It's really hard to judge throwing to high school kids that may not even be playing football after their senior year. So it's kind of hard to judge. But to me, I just think there's a lot of red flags when it comes to Riola.
Sue has a question. I don't know. I have a theory on this. I want to get your theory on it as well. Sue wants to know, will we ever know the real story of Dylan Raiola's decommitment from Ohio State? I should have mentioned, for those that don't know, I'm sure most people know that are watching this or listening, Dylan Raiola had committed to Ohio State and was looking like, look at Ryan Day, lands the #1 quarterback in the country, just one after another. And then Dylan Raiola decommitted. What's your theory on that, JBook? What happened there?
I don't think we'll ever get the real story, Sue. His dad did a recent interview where he was very complimentary towards Ohio State. I just think it's a situation to where the Lincoln Keyhole's commitment probably impacted him. There's a lot of talk about Ohio State saying, "Hey, we weren't going to go get a quarterback," and they actually did get a quarterback after the kid decommitted and went to Florida State, but. I don't think we'll ever know, but I think Ohio State will be better off in the end. I like the kid that they're bringing in. I just think that you can go big game hunting in 2024. Still try to go get somebody that can fill the needs and not be someone who could potentially be a distraction. Because if he gets into the program, Dave, you have to ask yourself this: will he even be there after 1 year? Will we have another Quinn Ewers type of situation? I mean, the kid can't even stay at a high school. And typically when you're in high school, that's where you're meeting your high school friends, you're having fun, being a teenager. Once you get into college, it's big business. It's a lot of pressure, especially when you're the #1 recruit. And if you're not playing, will we see a situation to where he pulls a Quinn Ewers? So I just think in this situation, Ohio State will be better off moving on, which they have, obviously. But I like Lincoln Keyholes. I think he's going to be an absolute gamer. And then at this point, go and try to find you a 2024 quarterback that could potentially fit your scheme and fit your vibes in the locker room.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think, now maybe I'm wrong. I think if Ohio State really, really wanted him, I think they would have just, kept the pedal to the metal, and they would have done whatever's going on, whatever he wanted, whatever he was thinking. They would have met his demands, for lack of a better word. I think Ohio State didn't feel like the juice was worth the squeeze, in my opinion. I think early on they did. I don't think they felt the juice was worth the squeeze.
Hey, I will say this, Dave. Does Georgia feel the same way?
I think so, probably. Georgia got a kid from their own state. Yeah.
Right. So if Georgia's like, hey, we're moving on here, we're not going to wait, because if you're Georgia and you're looking at it and you think this kid is the next coming, why wouldn't you wait? Especially when the kid obviously has you in his top three there. So if you're Georgia coming off a national championship, you've shown that you can, get quarterbacks to play at a high level. If you thought this kid was the real deal Holyfield, you should wait on him. But Georgia, they're not waiting.
Nope, not at all. And neither was Ohio State, at least in my opinion. Maybe it was y'all, Dylan, not wanting to come to Ohio State. I get the feeling it was probably mutual. Great stuff, as always, from Jonah Booker. He's a great follow on Twitter, as most of you know, maybe all of you know, at JBook37. Give him a follow. Thank you very much, JBook. Thanks to all of you for tuning into the show. We appreciate that very much. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend.